and on stars yet to be discovered. I'm Andrew Greenberg. I'm one of the co-creators of the Fading Suns universe. To my that way is frozen up, maybe? Did Bill just freeze up on us? Oh no. Someone cast hold person. Wait, wrong game. While we wait for Eschatonic himself, the prophet Bill Bridges. That's a heck of a smile he's got, though, that's frozen. Yeah, I mean, he's looking perfect. Hey, beautiful Phantom of Truth. And Unreal, I see you in chat as well. Good talking to you shortly ago. I'm actually doing one of the epic mega grants we'll have to talk about in a bit. All right, so I'm going to kill time until there he is.
Good.
Bill is back.
This crazy machine.
Technology machines are heretical. Bad think machines. All right, to my whichever direction he is.
There we go.
Yeah, you're live. We can hear you.
All right, cool. Hi.
He's still Bill. So
I'm still Bill.
Today, I think Bill froze on purpose because we're planning to talk about technology. And indeed, this is a forum on how to use flamethrowers. Thank you, Bill Thomas. Flamers, as we prefer to call them. In fact, we probably can use one on Bill Bridges' Think Machine in the not too distant future. But before we talk, hey, Keith, good having you here. He was still Bill. Now he's moving. Oh, Chainsaw Gothic. Oh, I should know better than read yours aloud before I read them to myself. That was painful, Chainsaw Gothic. Yes, he was still Bill. Now he's moving Bill. And that's painful. With that, let's go to some of the new art. Bill, why don't you show us some new art? I think there's some pretty cool stuff. So what's that one?
Let's get Robert to cue that up. Here we go. Let's see here. What do we got? Hold on.
You missed the Atiri.
I'm slowing down.
That was an Atiri. It's in the Discord. Just blow up your Discord.
There's some cool art. There's some folks looking at art. There's a pirate ship, I think is what that one is, set inside an asteroid. That's approaching, I believe, the pirate base inside the asteroid. At least I think that's what that one is. And there is a Hieronym in the service of the Dakados.
Read all about them in the upcoming Dakados books.
There you go. There's the Atiri. Atiri Duelist.
Atiri ain't got nothing on the lizards.
Yeah.
Just because I think they were descended from dinosaurs.
Oh, gosh. I can't remember who she is. She is.
We don't know who it is. We always say it's Salandra Dakados in yet another disguise.
And there's looking at some artwork.
Where is that? Is that on Academy Interata?
I'm not sure. We're recycling over again. There was still some more we haven't seen here yet. That should have been in that folder.
Who's that with the sword?
I believe that is a Templar. That is one of the. Oh, here we go. There's Cardano, Saint Cardano, Saint of Lovers. There's Saint Mantius.
Fighters. I see what you did there, Bill. Saints of Lovers and Fighters.
Yep. There we go. Now this is an example of what happens when you don't hire a gourmand guilder. Fiction for you. And now we're back at the pirates.
Excellent.
So yeah, this is some of the new art. Some of this is from it's scattered from all over the books that are coming out. Some of it's character book. Some of it's faction book. Some of it are some of the adventures. So yeah, this stuff's all over.
And just when we're talk about technology, we do one that shows very little technology, but we saw some really cool spaceships there.
Yeah.
So certainly, it's been my feeling that one of the core aspects of science fiction, science fantasy, speculative fiction, whatever you want to call it, is dealing with humanity's relationship, and individual humans' relationships with constantly changing and evolving technology. And there's certainly one of the fun things we want to do with Fading Suns was to look at a wide swath of the impacts that technology would have, but also to freeze humanity. So we've got a chance to really deal with it. So on top of just having to deal with technology, you've got the issues of most technology being heretical. What's the name for Fading Suns fan? Fading Heretics? Let's see.
I have to leave that for somebody else.
Billhead. No, that doesn't work. Bridgeheads? No. Bridgeheads! I like it. I like it. We can be bridgeheads.
I think it's just the faithful, but me.
So, Bill, why don't you talk a little bit? Why don't you define a few of our terms? Because technology isn't the only thing. We've got technosis.
Yeah. Well, in the new rule book, we've got a new stat called technosis. Basically, it measures how you can handle technology, because we assume that once you get up into higher levels of technology than we presently have right now in the early 21st century, in other words, tech level 5 and onwards, they start to have some sort of influence on people psychologically. And this is something the church has always said, but a lot of people don't believe them. But there is a basis now in the rules. And what that comes down to is when you are carrying more high-tech devices than your technosis allows, when you're using that device, when you're overloaded, that's the term for it, and you use one of those devices and you roll a critical hit on it, you then become susceptible to the technological compulsion that particular device has. And those are mental states that are unique to those sort of technologies, such as if you're firing a blaster and you get a critical hit and you're overloaded, then you're going to be destructive. You're going to want to see lots of things blow up. It sort of influences your behavior on that level. And this is stuff this church has always talked about, which is that this stuff are not neutral tools. They have biases, and that these biases affect us. And this is actually also a topic that comes up in a lot of the literature and studying today in the early 21st century by philosophers of technology and such, fighting over whether things do actually have biases. Do they actually affect us or not? And in Fading Suns, we side tweak a little bit toward the church. Now, there's all sorts of ways around it and getting out of it, because your technosis can rise with your level, but it can also rise with certain perks. And so the Merchant League has all sorts of ways, especially, they get around this sort of thing.
Of course, the Merchant League, the heretics therein, like to talk about how during the Second Republic, I mean, your average child utilized more technological devices than even an engineer does in the era of the Fading Suns, and weren't suffering from these illnesses. However, the church turns around and says, you don't know what illnesses they were suffering from. And there was a massive societal illness, which culminated in the fall and the long era of pain for all humanity ever since. We've been paying for the sins of the Second Republic since.
Well, the Second Republic children were raised much more conversant with technology, and so there was a sort of out on that disguised, at least the church thinks for the longest time, the true effects that were going on. And then a technical rule sense, it just means that there's a perk called Comprehend Tech, and you have to buy it for each level: tech level 5, tech level 6, tech level 7. And it's assumed that in certain eras of the Second Republic, children were raised with that perk, in a sense. So a lot of kids had tech level 5, tech level 6, comprehend tech perk just as part of their schooling. And so they were able to get around that sort of limit in a specific sense. But that sort of training only really took place at certain levels of the Republic. Not everybody had it. It was really only the ones on the more cosmopolitan worlds. So they were able to skirt this thing for the longest time and make people think that this kind of stuff doesn't affect people.
But then you have those engineers who feel that this entire tech backlash is mainly guilt pushed on everyone by the church. And it is, in fact, people subconsciously sabotaging themselves in response to all their church teachings. Of course, that would be heretical, call me. That would be an unfading heretic saying that. Tom Nook is a crook. And yes, there is indeed a massive technosis penalty for spending too much time on Twitch and Zoom. It's called 2020. So massive penalty. Just keep that in mind.
Yes. Just remember what 5G does to pandemic.
Call me has noted that it is children playing Animal Crossing who've caused the suns to fade.
Oh gosh, you blew it. You gave it away.
It's all turnips. We don't have vote scepters. It's all turnips. The whole universe is turnips. and there's a turtle on the top of it. Phantom of Truth notes that when you're overstimulated, when this is active, one must have 2 or more forms of input active at one time. 2 or more, 3 or more, 4 or more. Gotta get more realistic, and Tom Nook is indeed a crook. So let's talk about the various tech eras that humanity went through. Last time we talked about the history, the future history of the Second Republic. Let's talk about the future technologies of humanity. So obviously we're not currently in the First Republic, though that's not too far off when the corporations
end. We're in the very proto stages, I believe,
of the time when the corporations will liberate us from all governmental control.
That's exactly what happened. And finally take over our bad behavior and tell us what to do through mimetic engineering.
Of course, the main thing to do is buy, buy, buy.
Consumer paradise. So yeah, the First Republic era, which we're on the cusp of, starts to introduce level 5 technologies, and that extends us out into space. And Elon Musk is the main person behind that for right now.
Though Bill Thomas does note that people are trying to terraform the Earth right now, but the Earth is terraforming right back. I would not want to be in New Orleans this evening, I'm sorry to say. So yeah, unfortunately, as opposed to the terraforming of the height of the Second Republic, where they could control it, now we're at more of the terraforming of pandemonium, where nobody can control it anymore. So, but it makes for a great place to adventure. Welcome to 2020. So, but one of the things that we talked about with the Second Republic is their advances into space are clearly an important part of it. I mean, they head up to asteroids, they create launch facilities on the asteroids to fire resources back to Earth to replenish the things we've used up, helium and rare minerals and rare metals and so forth. But more importantly, and less often considered, is the dive into inner space, mimetic controls and the like. And the First Republic, while they did more in space than certainly we have at this stage, probably their greatest expertise was on delving into inner space as well as outer space. So always keep that in mind. They consider themselves the masters of psychology, even though they would never have said that. Marketing psych had gotten to an extreme. Fading Suns enduring times. Yes. Fading Suns this evening.
And
Jennifer Government, great chasing TV. None of us can deny that. I think Bill's a big fan of Jennifer Government.
It's a good one. It's very First Republic. Yeah. So we were going to do, I think we've mentioned this before in previous Heretical Musings, a game set in this era. It was called Sothra.net. And it was all about this sort of stuff, especially the mimetic engineering, and how, because of a lot of the climate change problems going on, people started experimenting in early terraforming kind of tech. They didn't really have it down yet, but it was all done to try to mitigate climate change and things going on there, such as the thermohaline layer in the ocean cutting off, and a new ice age of sorts, all sorts of little problems. But they get past it through all the vast ingenuity of the Zaibatsu and their wisdom.
Yep, and that's when they get to Mars, the Prophet's birthplace, far later down the line.
Yep.
And they do indeed put people throughout much of space. I mean, in the time of the First Republic, while they're locked into this solar system, they are definitely trying to expand around. And it is interesting that this is the era of the sleeper ships. When ships start, there are people willing to go into deep sleep in hopes of getting to some other system long after any of their relatives back in the First Republic would have passed on. But then we encounter that level of technology that everybody knew was out there. We never gotten that which is far above anything we could understand, and we get the jump gates. Sleeper ships, also known as Kraken bait. That's right. I'm an Asgul. It's not Kraken bait. It's just you consider them Kraken eggs. I mean, did Bill freeze again? Wow, we talk about technology and everything on Bill's end goes haywire. We'll crib for a little bit more time here while I wait for Bill to get back. Were they all sleeper ships or some generation ships? Yes. It's whatever the GM wants them to be until we introduce it. They're both there. Bill's back. All right. Or did he freeze yet again?
Yes, I did.
At least we can hear you this time. Just talk without moving your lips. The great ventriloquism act. I'll pretend that I'm over here with my hand on pulling Bill's string on the back of his neck. Making him talk.
Can you see me yet? Can you hear me?
Yeah. You're fine.
All right, cool. I just keep dropping in and out today. It does not like me talking about technology here, this computer.
So we talk about Sotherism as what breaks the Zaibatsu control, that error. And there'll be some things which will talk about that in more depth. This ability to connect psychically between humans, perhaps being part of what counteracts all the controls the First Republic has placed on them. And so at the height of the First Republic, we're seeing probably the first cold fusion that really works and is economically viable and significant, getting folks around. Different levels of types of propulsion for the spaceships that we have in place and so forth. Yes, the Caliph, you can't be making omelet without cracking eggs. Oh, all right. So let's talk diaspora, because Phantom of Truth says, how does diaspora, don't you love how I change it each time? Tech compares to modern Pax Alexius tech. How would the Church Merchant League regard newfound sources? So there are no shields in the First Republic. There are no blasters.
Anti-gravity either on the ships.
Right. Through the First Republic, we're still using technologies that anyone on this stream could recognize and predict happening.
Essentially, you're looking at some of The Expanse, if you watched that show or read the books, that era, where people are on the float a lot or dealing with, all the pressures of traveling in fast ships.
Right. So, and it's interesting, the diaspora era, in some ways, you see a bit of a freezing of technology, much like we talk about in the Pax Alexius and the current Fading Suns setting. Obviously, during the First Republic, there is this extreme growth of technology, but it's very controlled. Even now, we talk of, oh, wow, we lost Bill to a freeze again. Even now, we talk about the haves and have-nots of technology. In the era of the First Republic, it gets more significant. The diaspora democratizes it. People are taking it everywhere, but the ability to focus on it, the resources necessary to continue to accelerate progress at such a major speed is paused because people are too busy trying to create new worlds to build. And so many of the great brains are leaving Earth during this time. So, a number of good comments in chat. Chainsaw Gothic is the last one I'll say. So good to see folks cracking some jokes in chat. Ow. Jason TV, I hope the coffee did not burn. Bill Thomas, how much body modification in the Republic diaspora? A lot, and we're also going to have things like chemical modifications, nanotech in humans. Yeah, body mod is significant in the Software.net setting, as I think we're going to see. I mean, it is amazing what can be done right now. Racers with legs that have been put onto them, prosthetic legs that enable them to race faster than I could ever certainly hope to do. We're seeing eyes that are allowing people to act, bionic eyes, allowing you to actually register light and so forth. $6 million man might indeed be the thing down the line, or at least the $6 million woman. Early space travel, they did not have shields of any type. They actually had to depend on the pure metal of the ship. Now, and that actually, one of my theories, and we've kind of discussed this, but I haven't really gone into it, is this encouraged people to build bigger and bigger ships during the First Republic. Thus, you have these big sleeper generational ships. Why is that?
Can you hear me?
You need a certain amount of armor, metal, just to make sure you'll survive all the debris you're hitting. So let's say you need a foot wide. It becomes more economical to build out because that foot wide, yeah, you're adding to the ship, but you're getting more interior the bigger out you build. So I like to think the First Republic was the era of these giant Titanic type spaceships flying through space. We never really worked that out to the nth degree. Well, finding Las Vegas certainly fun for gaming. What's the logic for ancient tech still being in working condition? Because it was made so well. This is the Roman roads sort of idea. We talk about people, the Romans certainly didn't invent roads, but we're still using Roman roads. Well, I'm not, because I'm in the US where we only have a few Roman roads. But the idea that there is tech that can be better built than what comes later is the focus. So, because it was made so well. Sorry, trying to deal with Bill's echo over here at the same time. Magnetic shielding to a degree. There are conversations right now about how we could have force fields going on, but when you're starting to go up to speeds which are a percentage of light speed, you really need some serious protection in place. Thanks, Chainsaw Gothic, for news on the echoes being dealt with. If you were to set a text-based adventure during the First Republic diaspora, where would you set it? The diasporan worlds are just so rich with possibilities. And this is the time when they know about the Anunnaki. So imagine you are the first freaky diasporan utopian culture on another planet that's just encountered a gargoyle, despite the rumors of there being a gargoyle on Sutex. Imagine the level of tech you're suddenly dealing with, the effects you're having touching the gargoyles at this stage. A lot of the tech is fleeing Earth at this space. A lot of the best people are fleeing Earth, less of the brightest people. So, does any amount of metal block the Sothor effect, or only shield? So the Sothor damper is not really a shield. Bill, you want to talk a little bit more about the Sothor damper now that you're unfrozen? I thought he was unfrozen. Apparently, I lied. Yeah, we shouldn't have talked about technology today. The Pancreator is not pleased. I hear you breathing, Bill. Nope, he's muted. He's unmuted. Bill, you want to talk about Sothor dampers?
This is working.
I hear you. Apparently, I lied. All right. Stupid technology. That's right. Yeah. Bill, we can hear you talking. Don't just type.
Okay. Because I can't.
Definitely overloaded
I
on
can't hear myself.
Yeah, we can hear you. So go ahead and talk.
I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
I'm
on a time delay now. Problem.
Tell us about Sothor dampers.
Well, Sothor dampers are created by it's really, yeah. Sothor dampers are a shield. Not a shield, a field.
Yeah, we can hear you. Bill, do you have the volume turned on your stream? Turn off your stream volume.
This is going to work for me. I got to quit out.
All right. I'm going to song and dance for a while and see what happens. All right. Yes, Sothor dampers are a field. So, and the idea about protection from psychic abilities and that's not a shield. Those are fields that disrupt those energies. And I'm going to let Bill dig into that. Bill is on Mars, even when he's on Earth. You are correct, Bill Thomas. Tech compulsion still himself. All right, we're going to give Bill a minute to get on here. If he doesn't get back in a couple minutes, I'll keep you asking about technology. But I'll give you all a special sneak peek of some things coming up. First of all, we're going to have some exciting announcements coming up. I'll make an announcement here today. It is not Fading Suns related. It is related to the Siege convention I put on. It's going to be November 13th to 15th. I'm typing the link in chat. You all are getting to be some of the first to hear that. And why is it not going into chat? You are the first to hear that we're going to have Will Wright as one of our speakers. Why in the world is it not actually posting in chat?
Am I working now? Am I back?
You are back. We are hearing you.
All right, good deal. Yeah, I had to actually quit out the start program. But I'm back. All right, my pod on Mars is probably a short rocket from Elon Musk's home. No, I'd live on the other side of the planet.
All
Where
right.
were we?
We were just leaving the First Republic into the diaspora, and
Okay.
someone was asking about what software dampers were.
Oh, it's a field generated by the ship. They're actually it's a device that sort of alters the field that the ship generates. So it's not just a physical thing; it's also an energy thing. And well, look at it. Poor phrasing. What's colony size population assigned to a sleeper ship? Oh, geez, I don't know. There's a lot of them in there, packed in. So yeah, it's a field technology also. It's not just a physical device. So there's all sorts of things going on in there. Presumably, once they stole some Vautech, or found its way into their hands, they were able to improve the Sothra dampers later on. They were probably a bit wonky during the first Republic era and the diaspora.
And the question as to how many people are in the colony ships, there's a lot of dispute as to how many people are necessary to create a genetically viable colony. There was a lot of effort to always have it be over 500, preferably break 1,000, and to ensure that there was as little genetic similarity between them as possible going into it. And then there'd be rules on how they could marry and have children and so forth. So they did tend to be pretty significant vessels.
Yep, they're pretty big. Someone asked, from what I understand, Sothra dampers are extremely hard to damage. If they are, basically the ship won't work. Well, if you damage them the wrong way, yeah, you're going to wind up shutting down the jump drive field also, to where that won't be able to come on.
The ship
so
will
they
work,
are
the jump won't.
Yes, the jump drive. Going through a jump gate requires that your ship generates a field around it, sort of a bubble of sorts. And the Sothra damper is tied to that. And so if they are damaged by somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, yeah, you're probably going to interfere with the actual jump drive tech also. But if you know what you're doing, you might be able to shut it down just fine.
Nonsense, you'll lose your soul. And the technology for the Sothra damper actually comes from their studies of the jump gates themselves, just as the ability to fly through them did. So, interesting.
It's very closely related to the same tech as the jump drives.
Yeah, and there have definitely been theories that the Sothra damper is an important part of the gate itself, but that's just a theory. And there are a lot of theories about the jump gates themselves.
It's some of the theories were early on. At least this was what was pushed by the Zaibatsu, which was that the jump drives without the Sothra damper are actually the malfunctioning ones. That they were based on technology that wasn't fully understood when it was gleaned from the jump gates. In other words, the first few attempts and stuff. And it was only once they fixed the Sothra dampers that the ships worked properly.
So certainly by the time we get to the asteroid, the idea of anyone having a home computer is a joke.
So I'm getting freezing up again.
Yeah, but we can still hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes, we can hear you. All right, everyone, type in chat. Bill, we can hear you. So, you do get to the point.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Am I frozen?
You are frozen, but we can still hear you. For the idea of anyone having a home computer. Uh-oh, he turned on the stream chat again. Yeah, but we can still hear you. We're going to have echo from Bill again. Bill, we can hear you, and there you are. Yay. Bill, turn off the stream chat. Or the stream, not the chat, the voice.
Okay.
The audio from stream.
So that's the problem, is when my Discord goes down, I don't know if anybody can hear me. So then I have to turn on the...
Oh, now we lost him. He tries to explain his Discord problem, and now Discord kicks him out. Oh my gosh, this is the best example of all the technology problems we could have had at once.
Crazy.
I love it. Oh, great. Now Bill's below me. So I'm going to be making sure to have lots of fun with this one.
What a nightmare.
All right. Hey, Bill, I'm sitting on your head. Whoa, Ulysses International is moving us around again. Now I'm hidden behind Bill. There we go.
Is it working?
Yes, you are back. You are alive. Man. This is the reason why computers are gone by the time of the diaspora, and everyone's got them built into them. Anyway.
Oh, think machines don't think.
They do, certainly at the later stages of the First Republic, but what is AI definitely comes to be a significant question. I've always loved the argument that you can make a computer. This is kind of the Hitchhiker's Guide idea. You make a computer, it can build a better computer, and then that computer can build a better computer, and so on and so forth. But really, I still think the first computer would be better because it's already gone through the process of making a better computer. It can make a better computer than that faster. It's already done it once. Anyway, different rant. All right. So by the time of the Second Republic, all of these new diasporan planets are able to invest their resources into research again. So you have this explosion of new technologies that correspond to humans again talking to each other, humans again communicating. I mean, it's great to think of the diaspora having hundreds of planets, but they're hundreds of planets of under 1 million people not able to invest in progress, but having to invest in survival. So the Second Republic comes into being once they've gotten past that point. And when you have humans talking again, sharing knowledge, and technology exploding one more time. And there are clear attempts during the Second Republic to avoid the centralization of technology that was one of the biggest problems of the First Republic, where they try to democratize it more as much as possible. They try to keep the tech haves from keeping technology from the tech have-nots. And this begins to irritate some of the people who got power during the diaspora because they got used to having power, and suddenly there's this attempt to spread the wealth more equally. Even if that makes everyone wealthier, it doesn't make them the wealthiest. Now everyone's as wealthy as them. So we get into the Second Republic, and this is where you start getting really phenomenal technologies. I mean, cold fusion becomes a thing of the past. Antimatter is probably one of the highest levels of energy production at this stage in existence, and you're starting to deal with mini black holes creating energy. At the height of the Second Republic, you've probably gone past the idea of even needing the batteries that we talk about in Fading Suns, because the energy is just there to be pulled out of the atmosphere wherever you are. Whenever you're on a technologically advanced planet, you can just pull whatever energy you need out. It's constantly replenished. You're not having to worry about freezing up on streams, Bill. Oh, well. Guess he froze again. But we still have the batteries and shields and things like that, because during this stage of human existence, you are still going to planets where folks might not have it. Hey, we got Bill back. I'm starting to talk about the heights of Second Republic technology. You want to share what some of these might be? I was talking about how people could just pull energy out of anywhere. Of course, we still have batteries now because that wasn't necessarily.
Yeah, in the later Second Republic, they certainly can, and certainly they start to approach an understanding of some of the energy behind Vow tech. The Vow are definitely the masters of all forms of energy and stuff, and on levels that even the Second Republic wasn't always fully sure about, but they certainly were able to copy it and figure out some of their own things, such as you say, eternal batteries, eternal lights, things like that. Things like the Vow grav plates, in a sense, that just somehow automatically generate fake gravity. They don't even seem to need batteries all the time. They just do that. The ones that the known worlds still have to use sometimes have to be hooked up to the ship's batteries and engines and stuff, but at the highest levels, they were able to produce these things where they didn't need any energy. They just seemed to pull it from someplace else.
Phantom of Truth asked what Kardashev level was the Second Republic, and yes, we're hitting that point, but it is still not universal. No. We talk about how they've tried to democratize technology much more than the First Republic did, but you still have areas where there's much more tech development, areas where there's less.
And there's certainly some weird breakthroughs in very strange technologies, ultra-dimensional stuff, such as pan physics, which is what St. Almatheo's father was involved in. You've certainly got a lot of what Doremus, the terraforming the world architect, had done, which and a lot of those technologies were simply not universal because not everybody understood them. Some students did, some misunderstood them and broke certain planets. And others, made paradises of them and stuff. And this stuff just wasn't fully spread around. Favian Institute is another example. They were making breakthroughs in the study of psychic powers, but they still never fully understood how you can, say, make a psychic at will or cause some of these things to happen at will and so forth. So,
but genetic development was very was heavy. I mean, cloning was old technology for the second.
I'm frozen again. Well, I may not be frozen, but we can hear you, Bill. Now. So this is weird.
We can hear. I don't know why he's not able to hear us.
Cutting out on me, and I just I'm gonna quit out one more time. Bring it back in. See what'll happen.
We'll get him. Discord is proving its discordant nature. Eris, hail Eris in Discord.
Hello,
and welcome back.
Yeah.
All right. Now I'm frozen. What's out, everybody? Sorry. So then we get to the breakdown of the fall. So what happens here? Why does humanity lose this amazing level of technology so quickly and so completely? Even in our traditional Dark Ages, it's only misnomer to call the world Dark Ages. It's the Western European Dark Ages. Middle East is going through a knowledge boom during this period. Certainly can't say that China isn't progressing in this stage. And even the diaspora, we're seeing progress. So why does it suddenly freeze up and recede during the fall when that's so antithetical to everything that's happened in humanity? Well, we're not sure it happened everywhere. There are a lot of lost worlds who, for all we know, have continued to progress. Who knows what's happening on all of these various lost worlds that might have had the ability to cut themselves off and continue moving forward. We do know that the inability of humans to connect with each other and share knowledge became a major issue. But I think one thing that people will very secretly refer to is the power grab for technology that happened at the fall of the Second Republic. Even at the same time, the church is condemning the technology and aligning with the nobles in order to get technology out of people's hands. You have certain groups grabbing whatever they can and battling over it. If some groups tried to instigate the fall in hopes of ruling everything, they ended up mired in war with everyone for a long, long time. The church is opposed to them doing research. The old tech centers are destroyed, scavenged, looted. Some kept, more destroyed than as scavenged away and salvaged. And the focus on developing technology disappears as everything balkanizes, as we see planets split down to very small groups battling against one another for any kind of control. And the 90% of humanity just desperate to find enough food to live on, as the classic devices that just made food magically appear in their homes disappears and stops working. And so they're having to develop lost skills. Loss of data on how to make things. Yeah, that's a big part of it. I had a lot of fun in some of our books writing about the different tech languages that were used that are now lost that nobody can understand. We talked about the Earth tech languages, but they're just a small smidgen of the knowledge encoded there that the Second Republic had at the time.
There's also all sorts of forms of cryptology that they weren't able to break either, because they lost all those, and some of those were pretty advanced spy tech crafts and stuff. That
And he freezes again. And yes, call me, they refuse to wear masks. Pandemic is a major aspect of this time. There are diseases that had been thought lost that suddenly reappear with a vengeance. There are new diseases dreamed up in bio sites that nobody is able to get the antidotes for quickly enough. There might very well have been antidotes for them, and they spread with the wars. We were talking about pandemics and epidemics, and how those are knocking down technology during this time. Yeah, lack of infrastructure. No one dig up the rare earth minerals, making zero-G ball bearings. The nano supercarbonite stuff is lost.
Well, it all started when someone tried to make the Republic great again.
Mara. So we, as this continues, you have this combined pressure of trying to grab tech for oneself, a massive pushback against any new research, the brightest minds going into the church during this phase where they're not to study. The preceptors do exist during this time, and a lot of the best researchers going to the preceptors, which is, of course, now a heretical order, but even they're not advancing technology. And while there's a lot of money being spent, a lot of resources being devoted to war tech, they can't come close to the war tech that the Second Republic would have been capable of. And you see the technology become this scavenged level where you have the batteries that can take power, but every planet is making power differently. Some might still be using solar, geothermal, wind. Some are on, a lot of them are on burning what fossil fuels they have, because they didn't scavenge them during the Second Republic. They had better things than fossil fuels by the time of the Diaspora and Second Republic. So why plunder a world's fossil fuels? Now they are doing it. But every planet's doing it differently. You probably have places where folks are burning wood to power your energy shield. And dung and peat. I do like that. I haven't put that in yet, where you go to the to power up your energy shield and you smell burning dung.
Brute dung?
Brute dung. Brute dung powers your energy shield. Yeah, so Ivan Askel does raise the point. Lack of people that understand how to make stuff, because robots have been doing it all for generations as well. I mean, this fear that we're losing basic crafting and farming skills now because we're so used to giant farms handling it their way, which if things broke down, we couldn't exactly farm the way Archer Midlands does. Archer Daniels Midlands, yeah, whatever they are. Yeah. And yes, tech is extremely non-standardized. And that's kind of a fallback to the diaspora, where all these planets are developing it on their own. During the Second Republic, you definitely have standardization, but it's still pretty different everywhere. But that standardization requires the interaction between the worlds. And when it breaks down, you're putting in whatever you can figure out into effect right then. Unreal, outstanding. Yeah. It's humanity at its best. I cannot imagine how much dung must be burned to charge a dueling shield.
Oh, you can imagine it. Come on. Just give it.
It is brute dung. Modern day, yes, we lost a lot of the tech diagrams in the Apollo program because we can't read the data. We almost lost the original recordings of it. Yeah. They almost recorded over those. Yeah, can you imagine what we'll have in 1,000 years from the original Apollo stuff? I mean, can we at least have the original cassette recorder that powered the memory of the computer? All right, that was my Commodore. But same idea. Enough dung to support the village for a week. Phantom of Truth, you are the Dungmeister. I've got a Dungopoly.
And Call Me JK says, I remember that was an advantage Alexius had. He had access to a factory that churned out Imperial rifles. Yeah, that was definitely one of the things in the Emperor Wars era, as we show in the Emperor of the Fading Suns game, which is you have to build your way up tech trees and to be able to get manufacturing and stuff. And so, yeah, and you could lose it too, because not only through enemies, but the Church and Inquisition come in and say, nope, you shouldn't have that, and burn that down.
So, to be honest, the level of the Emperor Wars tech is better than the early Regency period, and that's a lot better than during the fall. While you might have these enclaves where you still had cold fusion in place, great think machines, etc., the average person had really lost it. And in order to cement their control, when the nobles put in the generational contract with the serfs, where they make 90% of humanity into serfs, part of that contract is to avoid technology. So not only are they not using it, but clearly they're not researching it. They're not thinking about it. In the U.S., I mean, the majority of people might not be going to college, but it's still a huge number. And if they're not researching tech, they're still thinking about it, using it. They're customers from the technology for the technology. If 90% of humans couldn't buy an iPhone, think what level of iPhone we'd still be at. We'd still be using iPods back in the dark ages. So there is this mix of a lack of people thinking about it, researching it, using it, or even buying it. So why make it for them? So we still do talk about that image of the peasant in the field plowing with brute and a classic wooden plow, looking up to see the noble flying overhead. But the noble has no idea why the flitter is flying and why the shield is working. We've got better ideas of how our cars work than they've got of their of how their flitters work.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a different level to comprehend. As far as the noble's concerned, it might as well be magic. Yes, Chase and TV, I do still have an iPod hidden away. I cannot deny. I don't know if I can still access it. But and that's one of the funny things I think. What was that?
Among the Voldrock, the Magtaw Nation are the ones who keep the tech running for them instead of the Engineers Guild. And to them, it is magic. It's all tied in deeply with their shamanic rituals for talking to their tech and keeping it alive in an animist fashion.
Now, I would argue that that's not magic. It is a spiritual communion separate from magic.
Well, right, yes. They do have theurgy that does magic. But the actual practices around tech aren't magic. They're so deeply embedded into the religious customs, though, of that culture that they're seen in an animist way. So if an engineer gets a engine working properly, he thinks it's because he talked the thing into working right, coaxing it through some of his skills.
And no, Bill Thomas and Magra are not Apple users. Linux.
They use Amigas in Voldrock space.
Whoa. I thought that was the Caliphate used Amigas. That's why they're so much more advanced and they're broken off from everyone else. And call me notes with even regional differences to accommodate terrain and climate. Exactly. Significant differences throughout. So that brings us up to the Pax Alexia. But why aren't we suddenly having an explosion of technology? Now that planets are communicating, the League is certainly operating effectively, and overt war has come to an end. Well, one of the funny things that people talk about is that we did see this expansion during the Emperor Wars. With the end of war, there is less resources being put into research, even though the research of the Emperor Wars was purely on military tech and not on anything the average peasant would want. There was more effort at research then. Groups are talking, but the church is still pushing back against it. And I'll return to the idea of 90% of humans are still considering.
One sec here.
All right, still considering an iron mallet about their height of technology. So, now I look frozen. So, technology, is it advancing at this stage? Is an interesting part. You have. Through most of human existence, technology has had an aspect where it could benefit most people. Where if we invented a printing press, if Gutenberg invented a printing press, he wanted to sell as many books to as many people as possible. If Tesla invented electricity, he wanted to use it to zap Edison. I mean, he wanted to get into as many people's homes as quickly as possible. And it's not just because guild secrets call me, and that is a point of it. They are going to hoard those secrets. The Prospectors Guild understands technology. It would make a huge difference if it was given to the engineers, but they're not going to be the engineers. The engineers have technology that could help the pedagogues, could help the town criers, all the different guilds, and they're not going to share it. So you're absolutely right. The refusal to share technology is a major part of why things are advancing so slowly. But this is the first time when you have the tech haves so ferociously keeping it away from the tech have-nots. This is the epitome of that difference between tech levels within a single culture, where people feel that their prosperity comes from not allowing technology into other people's hands, which is the exact opposite of where humanity has been for so long. If you invent an abacus, it's spread around to everybody. If you figured out how to light fire, you told all the other fire keepers. And when people figured out arrows, bow and arrows, that spread quickly as well. Now the idea is to keep it from spreading. And now it is a human conspiracy to keep technology from spreading like it had in the past. So it brings us to the Pax Alexius, where there is this pressure. Let's cure more people. Let's spread medicine. Let's spread a better standard of living, meeting an incredible resistance to exactly those issues. And that is one of the tensions you're seeing grow in the Pax Alexius. Covered over by everyone who thought that we're now at peace, but it's still there. The haves trying to make their best, doing their best to ensure it can't get into other people's hands, while some other folks are trying to change that for their own benefit and for the benefit of their communities.
Yeah, you've also got issues of grassroots resistance to it, such as the Children of Zun, which is a peasant sort of revolt against technology. And this is because of all the horrors of the Emperor Wars, where technology that they experienced then were in the forms of poison gas bombs, and just horrid stuff that was developed again and used against them, their relatives, their fathers, and such. And so they are kind of this very Avestite-like movement to because they don't trust the elites with their tech anymore.
Yeah, so Comey raises a good point. A big part of Comey's former campaigns always included war veterans used to using ground cars, machine tools, weapons, etc., being forced to abandon them and return to hoeing the ground. Yeah. And one of the crazy things you think about here is the armies in the field had to keep this high-tech stuff operating in combat situations without a technically literate combat force. So a lot of these combatants were developing these skills on the fly, how to keep that hover tank moving in battle. And suddenly you're right, they're going back to their peasant life, and the difference is astronomical in the way that and how they can use these old skills. We think about World War II having spread tech skills, not just because people were trained, but because they came back in the US, at least to the GI Bill, they sent them to college. But there was some real tech training in the military at that stage. But it's like, how well are you going to use your nuclear submarine training now when you muster out of the Navy? The tech that the military uses now is so different from what civilian life uses. And at the end of the Emperor Wars, it is tremendously different. I mean, it's tech levels different. Bill Thomas asks, let's go to Chainsaw Gothic's question for you, Bill, first. So, what role have the Avestites played in all of this?
Same they always have, burning down anybody they don't like. So yeah, now admittedly, they haven't had as many excuses to go, burning left and right everybody, because there hasn't been as much rampant illegal text use in the Pax Alexius. It's more of people getting used to some stuff, but like you said, they're hoeing the ground still, so that hasn't changed much. There's no outright wars. What factories are being built for this kind of stuff are still kept secret, as a lot of them were during the Emperor Wars. So it's not as obvious in the Emperor Wars as going and burning down this, that, and the other.
And some of the old alliances are breaking down. And this is a problem. So, for instance, most of the Ducados worlds are Avestite. And there was this understanding between them that, yes, the nobles would have their technology, but the Ducados would keep it out of the hands of the peasants. And for the most part, the peasants did. You had the wars. Some of the peasants had it in their hands. Peasants go away, come back. And now during this period of peace, you've got Ducados nobles want to up each other, become richer. Suddenly it does them an advantage to take away their peasants' axe and give them a chainsaw. Let them chop down a lot more wood than they otherwise would. So there is this bit of a breakdown. Are we going to see a massive backlash from the Avestites? Some people would say an Avestite's life is spent in massive backlash. But you are going to see some of the friction in the old alliances and some very nasty responses to it. And if there are tech problems, you expect a Avestite reaction. Bill Thomas asked, what was training like? That they used some sort of virtual video game training to get them all up to speed. The Pedagogues Guild. Bill, you want to talk about the Pedagogues Guild?
Well, in terms of military, what he's talking about here, you wouldn't have had a lot of pedagogues, or at least enough of them. So it does make a certain amount of sense that one of the techs, some of these noble houses and all the other factions we're going after would have been some degree of, magic lantern and holovid, making, so they could make some of these, here's how to fire your rifle, sort of holovids that they could then send to all their frontline troops and stuff, rather than having to have endless bouts of training. So they had to have some of that too. Pedagogues, though, they wouldn't have been terribly affordable by everybody, but anybody who could afford to bring in some good pedagogues to train people would have been had a slight advantage. So it's certainly one of those tech tree kind of elements, was having a pedagogue on your side.
So here's a bit of pre-First Republic trivia for all you Futurians out there. Will Eisner, for whom the Eisner Awards in comic books are named, the highest award in comics, he made, well, do you know where he made most of his money? He made most of his wealth drawing training comic books for the military. And he did this from the period where the Spirit stopped being the popular comic strip up until the 70s, when he started doing more stuff. So basically a 20-year period, Will Eisner is making his bank by drawing training comics for the military. And by all accounts, they were very effective. And the ones I've seen are great.
Yeah, I used to have the one on the M16.
Oh, that'd be cool.
There was one on Jeeps too. My cousin used to have a military surplus store, so they had those in there, and they were great. But yeah, it was a great way to teach people through comics. So I can certainly imagine some people adopting that too. It'd be interesting to see some of those. Actually, Emperor Wars era comics used to teach the troops.
During the First Republic, we've pretty much gone past the universities, anything beyond a research era. I mean, at that point, you've got a few professors teaching the subjects to everybody. If you want to learn nuclear engineering, there are probably 5 different professors. Each one teaches towards a different style. And that's what you have. Why all the different universities, you're not going to the university anymore. It's so much cheaper and just as effective for each of these professors to teach to your level of understanding. Plus, it helped the powers that be keep a greater control over the population at large. Shut down the universities, the centers of thinking, control what they pass out, and you might have more effectively train them, but you don't necessarily teach them. So you probably had something like this also at some of the higher levels of military training in the Emperor Wars. You went through classic old school boot camp with your sergeant yelling at you and cursing at you while you crawled through the mud carrying a pretend rifle. You don't get your rifle until you're done with basic training, so you don't shoot the sergeant. You get your first bullet when you go out in the field and so forth. But then you probably have these massive training camps that are set up for their peasant style of training. We talk about how House Hawkwood had actually geared its military toward training. The best troops were turned into instructors so they could keep turning out a good level of troop, whereas, of course, at Ducados, the best troops become special forces who are hiding behind all the grunts carrying their spears into battle. Chasen TV says that Chasen TV's Army boot camp, all the manuals are written on an 8th grade level. Well, your co-enlistees were smarter than most of the gamers I play with. No.
And Bill references, I believe, Constantius and Constultius.
Yeah.
Vestite comics used to train morals and such. But we're at 5:59, so it's about time to wrap this up here.
Yep. Health and fitness, safety and hygiene would be very important. Knowing how to dig a really good latrine is still taught in basics. So I imagine that was still going on. But I mean, the peasants weren't exactly filthy folks. I mean, they know how to create a safe, vaguely hygienic environment. But I bet you they got some smallpox when they were put into basic together. I always remember the Spanish flu probably started in the Midwest U.S. So should be the Midwest U.S. flu. So yeah, you probably had a bunch of pandemics going around then too. All right, everybody. Has Bill frozen one more time? Should we leave everyone saying bye, Bill? Wait, he's coming back to say goodbye. Bill, are you back to say goodbye?
I'm back to say goodbye.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Ulysses International, for running this, and we look forward to chatting with everyone again. Oh, we're going to have some special surprises on the next Heretical Musings. Some really cool things happening. I mean, I announced Will Wright for Siege, but I expect some more Fading Suns and maybe even Emperor of the Fading Suns announcements next time. Cheers, all.
Bye, everyone.